Calling the meeting to order. Tonight, Mayor Pankinen, he will not be here, and Commissioner Rob Stallings will not be here. The invocation tonight, we're going to ask Michael Stallings to say the prayer, and Commissioner Waddell, would you mind doing the flag salute?
Father, I want to thank you for the privilege of living in a town like Enid, a town that's progressing, prospering. I want to thank you for the privilege of getting to know the people of Enid and some of the people that are leading this town. And this evening, it's my request, Lord, that you would give each person who's leading this town or serving in this community in some way a special extra blessing of wisdom. That as we move forward as a community, we will move forward with unity and with prosperity and with joy. And we ask you for all this in Jesus' name. Amen.
Amen. I pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Next on tonight's agenda, item 4, consider approval of minutes of the regular commission's meeting of August 20th, 2019.
Move to approve.
Second.
All in favor?
Somebody not vote?
It didn't work.
It's because where I'm sitting.
We'll put it that way.
There you go.
Close enough.
Vote goes 5-1. I mean, 6.
Alyssa, are you going to be able to?
5 all.
Okay.
As long as they're unanimous,
We
it's easy.
discussed that earlier.
So 5 all. Okay. Item 5, awards, presentation, proclamations, and organizational business. Item 1, present pet available for adoption at the city animal shelter.
Hi, good evening, everyone. I'm Charlotte Ringwald. I'm the Animal Adoption Coordinator at Enid Animal Control, and tonight my friend is Jax. Jax is a 7-year-old Shih Tzu. He is in pen 27. He's male and he's already neutered, so it's just the cost of a rabies shot to adopt him. So come by and see us at the Pet Expo tomorrow and Saturday. We're gonna have Jax with us and lots of fun. So you guys come by and see us. And the shelter is also open tomorrow from 10 to 6, and we're always open weekends from 12 to 3. So thank you.
Item 2 of 5, present walk for our kids' day proclamation.
Shall we go down?
Yeah.
Okay.
Read this proclamation. Whereas Garfield County is estimated to have nearly 2,000 individuals with disabilities living in the community, with 162 individuals receiving state support services and 272 on the waiting list to receive services. And whereas the For Our Kids Foundation has been dedicated to providing support and opportunities to individuals with disabilities in the community since 2003. And whereas through vocational opportunities, recreational support, opportunities, community services, education, and advocacy, the For Our Kids Foundation has maintained an extraordinary record of providing support to children and adults in the city of Enid. And whereas the City of Enid encourages our residents to support the For Our Kids Foundation and take steps to support the children and adults with disabilities and their families by joining the For Our Kids Foundation Walk 2019. And whereas on September the 7th, 2019, the For Our Kids Foundation will be hosting the annual walk for our kids and Hero Dash to support the programs and provide educational, vocational, social, and recreational opportunities. The children and adults in Enid, Oklahoma. And now, therefore, I'm Mayor George Pankinen, on this important occasion, by virtue of the authority vested in me as mayor and on the behalf of the City of Enid, do hereby declare September the 7th, 2019 as the For Our Kids Foundation Walk, For Our Kids Day in Enid, Oklahoma. The For Our Kids Foundation Walk for Our Kids Day. Do y'all like to make any comments?
I would. I encourage everyone to come out Saturday and join us. It's our biggest fundraiser of the year. We have 16 teams, and we will have an extreme petting zoo, which has lemurs and a badger and all kinds of exotic pets that you don't normally see, and all of that is free. The rides at Meadow Lake will be open. We'll have food, we'll have bounce house, we'll have just lots of fun stuff to do, so please come out and join us on Saturday. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Hearings. Let me see. Hold a public hearing of an ordinance amending the Enid Municipal Code 2014, Title 10, Planning and Development, Chapter 6, Sidewalks, Section 1061, sidewalks required to approve, whereby sidewalks are required within the city, and the exceptions from the requirements, definitions of ditch and community and residential centers. Repeal of sidewalks development fee, providing for repealer, savings clause, severability, and codification. Okay.
Thank you, Mayor, City Commissioners, City Management. The Planning Commission was tasked with looking at the current sidewalk ordinance. They started from a foundation of where are people walking? And the answer to that was pretty easy. They're walking in their neighborhoods, they're walking downtown and walking on our trails.
Sorry, let me stop you there. How is that true? People are walking like to and from work and school and from one place to another all over town. On why are we basing this baseline? I mean, I have heartburn with this baseline assumption that people are only walking in their own neighborhoods and downtown. I see people walking to their jobs all over.
The second part was, where do people want to walk to? And I think that addresses your question, Commissioner.
They already are. I mean,
Right.
it's just not safe.
And so the previous ordinance required sidewalks citywide. Through several variations of that ordinance, it got pulled into a little tighter area. And the Planning Commission came up with 8 points here. The first one, recognizing that people want to walk in their neighborhoods, that has been successfully addressed in your current ordinance, and they're recommending no change of those requirements in this ordinance. The second one was, it deleted requirements for sidewalks within multifamily, commercial, and educational, and the rationale there is ADA requires those internal pathways, so it eliminates that from the ordinance. 3, defines where new commercial, industrial, and special use sidewalks are required. It exempted additions that are 2,500 square feet and smaller. It exempted the construction of a sidewalk in a ditch. It exempted building maintenance, remodels, total loss from constructing a sidewalk. And it deleted the option to pay a fee in lieu of building the sidewalk. And then there were no requirements for commercial, industrial, special use sidewalks outside the areas defined in the ordinance. That were their talking points, and the changes that they're proposing to you are based on those. They turned to the comprehensive plan that we just adopted maybe 4 years ago, and it talks about destination areas, i.e. downtown, and one out on West Garrett. You see some red circles. The large circles are community centers. Those contain business services and good that not only the Enid residents need, but also our trade tributary that comes into Enid. And then the smaller ones are referred to as neighborhood centers, basically cater to the rooftops that they serve. So then we overlaid that on the city map and brought those over. And then in addition to that, they looked at what streets do we have commercial and industrial and special use on, and it was obviously O&K Garrett, Van Buren, downtown, all the streets there in yellow. So those were the areas that the Planning Commission saw that people were either walking to, as Commissioner Zell has said, or people want to walk to those to get goods and services.
But this is where I have heartburn with this new ordinance revision that's attached to the agenda and is presented here, is this idea that people are not walking between these spots it's confusing. I mean, I see people walking between these spots every day. How did MAPC come up with the idea that we shouldn't require sidewalks connecting all this?
Their focus was on the ordinance, and the ordinance addresses residential and it addresses commercial, and that's where the ordinance has struggled with lots of variances.
Well, I don't think the ordinance has struggled at all. I mean, I think we grant variances when it seems obvious, but this looks to me, and has it structured here, is within commercial zoning areas, we're obviating the responsibility to build sidewalk on any of these connection points if you're outside that core.
But this ordinance says if you're commercial in these areas, you'll build a sidewalk.
Right, but if you're outside these areas, you don't have to, and that leaves these huge gaps where nobody's required to build sidewalk. How do you get from one to the other?
If the comp plan is what we do, then all the commercial will be guided to these centers.
Okay, but Chris, you're missing the point here.
I apologize.
There's already people living and working this whole city, and there are people walking from one to the other. And if what we're saying with this ordinance revision is you only have to build sidewalk in a commercially zoned area if you're at the location, if you're at the destination, we are taking out the responsibility of the entire community to build sidewalk that connects. Because if we're only requiring sidewalk around these little dots, and I live by one dot, and I work at the other dot, and I have to walk to get from point A to point B, and I'm walking through an area that's zoned commercially, I don't have any sidewalk to walk through, and our ordinance doesn't require it if we went with this revision. I mean, my understanding is the current ordinance basically does require it. Why should we remove the obligation of sidewalk connections between all this?
Ultimately, that's up to the commission.
Right, but MAPC did all this work, and I want to know what their
Okay,
rationale is. Why should we make this change?
Their focus was when should commercial build a sidewalk and where? And this is their finding. At these centers and along these retail strip areas.
But so
They did not address red dot to red dot.
Right.
Because there is no commercial in those areas.
There's an awful lot of commercial in those areas. I mean, look at do you have this map overlaid on our zoning map?
I can get that for you.
I mean, there's huge swaths of, I mean, I'm looking at it from our comp plan. It's on page 259 of the comp plan, and there's.
Does this picture help?
Yeah, I mean, there's mixed use all throughout there. I mean, even, and it's not quite as broad, uniform. We don't have this uniform a zoning city in reality, but I'm.
This took a very detailed look at where those commercial are, and this reflects that.
But again, people walk from one to the other.
Exactly. But the purpose of this section of the ordinance is when will commercial build those? Not between the two dots. That'll probably happen when the street is rebuilt, and a good example of that would be Willow from Cleveland to Oakwood, and there was a sidewalk added.
I mean, I guess here's my fundamental problem. We've had this idea for as long as I've been here that as painful as it is, if we want to have a walkable city over time to make up for the fact that for 50 years we didn't require anybody to build sidewalk, that it's gonna take everybody pitching in to make it safe, that everybody's gonna have to do it, and it's gonna take several decades. It's just gonna take time. And if we're now dramatically limiting the scope of where we require it, we're never gonna get a connected, walkable city. We're gonna have our arterial streets when we get around to doing the roads eventually.
Correct.
But if we
Hey,
actually
Ben,
make everybody do it, then we
Can I
get the
interject something here?
piecemeal connections.
I helped work on this through the MAPC. We put a lot of time into this. In a perfect world, I'd love to have sidewalks on every single street throughout our community. However, that was not what was happening. They'd come to us, even if we would try to enforce a sidewalk ordinance, they'd bring it to this council right here, and it was voted down. They
Well,
were
not all the
given a
time.
waiver over and over and over, all the way out, even Jiffy Trip that is in that area.
Yeah.
So now we don't have a sidewalk there, which if we had this ordinance in place, we would have one now.
Well, but David, they can still apply for a variance for this body even if this ordinance is in place. We're just
Well,
making it
they
even.
can, but if we'll hold them to this right here.
Well, but we can hold them to you could say that we're gonna hold them to the ordinance we have,
We
but if
don't,
if four commissioners vote, I mean, listen, you're preaching the choir here. I voted no on damn near every ordinance that's come, or variance that's come before us because we need sidewalk. But what you're saying is that, will this ordinance change, which is even laxer, is somehow gonna be enforced, there's a disconnect there. 4 commission votes grant the variance, who
I
cares how
understand
lax the
that.
ordinance
I
is?
understand that, but it makes no sense to jump out there in front of a house and just put a sidewalk that starts here and stops here. This way, we will have a plan, and if we will stick to that, we'll have sidewalks in these areas sooner than later, probably.
Well, but
But this is better than what we're doing now. Because they are using the waivers as precedent not to get us, not to,
Well, David, then I
to
would,
have a sidewalk.
then I would challenge this body, you included, to instead of making the ordinance laxer, let's enforce the more strict ordinance we have. And the variance, you can request the variances all day long. If we deny them, they're denied. But this ordinance doesn't make that any more likely that sidewalk gets built. I think it gets
does.
less likely because we're exempting a huge swath of town. We're requiring fewer people, and the same people who come to this body and request a variance can still request it. We're just requiring fewer people. So how can you say that this ordinance means more sidewalk when all we're doing is exempting more people without even
because I
requesting the
think we were
variance?
trying to place sidewalk on people that could not afford it. Been all out through there. I mean, I've sat on that board, I've watched them come up here and tell us that.
We were also discouraging development because we were imposing basically a sidewalk fee for even moderate or low-level projects for businesses, small businesses and organizations that would have to come up with a substantially more amount of money to do expansions in their own buildings because of the sidewalk. Which one of the things that the new ordinance does is it actually sets a level in terms of the amount for the project in order to be able as a level to say, okay, from this point beneath, it's no longer going to make a trigger.
Yeah.
And I don't, even if you don't like all aspects of the new ordinance, there are some merit to some of the changes that.
Oh, no, absolutely. I have no heartburn with that. And that's a change that we made to the residential ordinance 3 or 4 years ago where we put a threshold so it didn't get triggered so often. And it made it a little more, okay, if you're doing a smaller addition,
And I think it's fair enough to do that on the commercial.
Yeah,
side.
and I've got no heartburn with that part of it, but I'm upset at the idea that we are only putting what this looks to me is like we are saying, we are happy for this to be a drivable city. We are not so interested in making this a safe, walkable city. And I know it's not gonna happen quickly, but I'm gonna be here in 30 years. And if we're requiring everybody to do it, yeah, maybe that chunk of sidewalk gets built and nothing gets built on either side of it for 5 years. But give me 25 years of being real hard-nosed about this, and we start to have a lot more connected, and it gets safer. We have to take the long view because the 50 years of commission before us didn't.
I understand that. I think, and you'll see here in just a second, the overlay on the trail system, I think there's a lot more connectivity to this plan than what it even looks like right here.
This is the slide that my last slide of the presentation, I zipped to it.
Chris, can I ask you a question?
Yes, sir.
What's the life expectancy of a sidewalk?
Chris, help me with that as an engineer.
Considering the fact that if we don't drive on them, they'll last for a very long time. And 50 years is not
And if there's no big
inconceivable.
trees next to
And
them.
there's no big trees.
No, we've got WPA sidewalks all over my side of town that were built as WPA projects. They're completely walkable and usable.
Yeah, but if you take,
Still
if
see
you
the
take,
stamp on there.
take the trees out and you don't drive on it,
Yeah.
with vehicles, they'll last for a long time.
Commissioner Mason mentioned that our work at Planning Commission, we did superimpose the trail system on top of the commercial component here, and you can see how different areas are being connected via the trail system.
I would love for all that to actually exist, but do you have a slide that's the trail that's actually there? I mean, all those blue
Well,
lines.
this just represents our plan. It's done in some segments are done, but I did not detail that out.
Yeah, but that's what I'm saying is that that is, $35 million worth of trail you have thrown up there that there's no chance we're getting paid for anytime soon.
But that's really the same thing with sidewalks, though, right?
Except the sidewalk can be done in bites that we don't have to, we are requiring the whole community to buy in on. And it's not easy to sit up here and take $1 million chunk out of our budget for trails. We've done it a few times. We're not doing it this year. We didn't do it last year. We did part of it the year before. We skipped a year before that. I mean, that will not get built in most of our lifetimes up here at the rate we're going. And we still leave pretty significant chunks with no requirement to build sidewalk.
Well, this is exactly the reason we brought this to study session. Even though we had a study session about this very same thing about 3 months ago, because I know there's a difference of opinion. And the difficult thing is trying to find something to bring to you if you want to consider at some point to vote on. If you don't, you can make that decision too. We had taken a different approach that we had never taken before, which was, yes, Carol?
It's a public hearing. There's no vote tonight. Well,
Right. Yeah, yes, I'm aware there's no vote, but it is a hearing, so
Right.
I didn't sign up, but I'm still going to talk.
We could fix it. We got a pin.
Yes. Anyway, we took a different approach with MAPC that they expressed some frustration. I know that Commissioners Mason and Waddell have been on MAPC, and Mason is still on there. So this is what they came up with. Probably I should have asked that we have one of them come to, or at least the chairman. This is great because there's no limit on the number of hearings we can have or study sessions on this kind of thing. So
And the Planning Commission had no opinion that their solution would be the final one. That they worked 3 solid months on this, and this is their recommendation to you.
And I've got, and just to go back to your list of points 1 through 8.
Yes, sir.
I really don't have any major gripes with 1 through 7. But putting the commercial requirement only into those comp plan zones, I think we need to keep the requirement as broad as possible. And yeah, David, I think we need to enforce it. Now, Bill and Ron voted for every variance that ever came before us, and look, they're gone. I mean, we can enforce them now if 4 of us want to do it, but I don't think we need to make the ordinance more lax in order to enforce it, at least in the area. Again, the reasonable changes in 1 through 7, and like you said, Jonathan, I've got really no heartburn with that. That's rational.
Sure. What I would say is in terms of the, with 8, I think that goes to overall philosophy. I think one of the problems that MAPC had is that there wasn't a consensus in terms of whether or not we looked to sidewalk, commercial and industrial use, particularly industrial use. So I think, conversations like this for us to be able to voice opinions in terms of what do we think the intent is, to do this? Otherwise, we're going to perpetually get variances when it comes to stuff like this, as members come in on and off. We need to figure out what it is we want to do. Do we want to sidewalk industrial areas? Do we want to sidewalk commercial areas? And if the answer is yes, then, we could leave that in there. But if not, if we come to a decision, particularly, I look at some of the areas in my ward, in Ward 4 that are heavily industrialized. I couldn't imagine putting a sidewalk to some of those places over there. So,
Yeah.
one of the things that we looked at was, setting it in districts and saying, hey, look, we wanted to approach this particular area and put an emphasis on this area or another area. But if we're talking about, I just don't see the rationale in terms of some of those industrial areas as far as sidewalking those areas. I just don't see anybody ever walking by, this loud, smoking building that, I just don't see it.
Well, and I agree with you. Industrial zoning, I mean, that for our industrial areas, which are easy to describe and easy to define, that's a totally rational change. But we've got commercially zoned properties polka dotted all over town, not just in those cores.
So I think progress is that we could look at a 1 through 7 and probably, write that in. But I think if we refined 8 in terms of, philosophy and thought process, I think the product that MAPC brought together had a lot of good points. They've had more experience doing this than we have in terms of what's come before them in this time. So I think spending some time with 8 and figuring out what would work for us, even if we're not going to remove the blanket, off the whole city, I think we should look at, okay, are we going to exempt some specific areas based on what their predominant usage is?
Yeah. Well, and also, if it's not, I mean, if we had an industrial area that was smack dab between 2 neighborhoods, then we probably should require it anyway, because folks walk from one neighborhood to the other. But most of our industrial areas are out on the outskirts or by a rail yard, or not in an area where somebody can physically walk from A to B. I mean, and no matter what we change ordinance to, one, there will be instances that require variance just because there's something screwball, and we should be reasonable and rational, and sometimes it comes before us, and okay, there's no way we could write the ordinance to account for this particular instance of, infeasibility. Sure. And there will be variances. But we can also write an ordinance as strict as we want, and if 4 commissioners vote for variance, who cares what the ordinance says? You get it. Yeah. And we can't make the next commission do anything.
Sure.
We can't make ourselves do anything next week. I mean, it's just...
The problem that we were facing is that it seemed like the variance was more so the rule than the exception. And we were finding that and so we need to get to a point to where we get this written in a manner in which we're not seeing so many variances, or when we see a variance, logically speaking, based on a methodology and what our intent was behind it, that we can rule it in or rule it out based on what our thought process was when we wrote it. Because right now, I don't think there's enough of a consensus of what the thought process was at this stage in the game.
Well, but the way the code is enforced, there's no thought process written into the code. There are rules.
Sure.
There's not a philosophical ideal behind any of our codes.
I don't disagree, but we can understand intent.
But the intent isn't the intent does not go into interpreting zoning code. That when you look at intent in interpreting statutes, that's one thing when you get like litigation, but the intent isn't a part. It's just there's a set of rules, and frankly, I think the frequency of variance had very little to do with the way the ordinance was drafted, and had everything to do with the makeup of the commission, and that there were 3 people who would vote for every variance that came before this body, no matter what it was, and it wasn't too hard to pick up a 4th. And anybody who was building didn't take a whole lot of effort to look at the makeup of the commission and say, oh, I could just request a variance. And so I think we can change the ordinance. I don't think we should make it more lax, but we can change the ordinance all day. And if we as a body won't, at every meeting when we get a variance, say very clearly, no, sidewalks are important, that's when the intent comes through. That's when the rubber meets the road.
We should just have a further discussion.
Fair enough.
Ask if anybody's here in the public to speak to it.
Okay, can I do that now?
Are there any other questions I can answer? There may be people in the audience that wish to speak. Thank you.
Is there anyone in the audience that would like to speak on this? No one? Okay.
Okay, just as Carol has pointed out, this is a hearing, so I should say this is why we had the hearing. I want to remind everybody, we've had at least 5 or 6 iterations of the sidewalk ordinance, and it's always been divisive, I guess, one way or the other. I think we have the residential piece fixed pretty well, because as everybody's talked about, we don't get, I can't even remember the last time a residential variance came. I think it's been years. So that tells me we've got the language right and people are doing them where they're supposed to do them. Our problem's always been on the commercial side. So this was an effort to try and come up with a solution. I'm sensing that it's not perfect, so we will take this and try to figure out how to come back.
Well, the solution, let's not overcomplicate, the solution was the election. I mean, and either there's 4 commissioners that want sidewalks and are gonna be hard-nosed about it, or there aren't. I mean, we can dance around it all we want, but it was, variances would come up and they would get voted 4-3.
All fairness, do you all think we should wait until all the commissioners are here? Or?
Well, this
There's
is-
no action item on the agenda.
Okay.
We can't do anything.
So I think in fairness, probably, and in fairness to MAPC and all the work that's been done, what we'll probably do is just bring this ordinance forward, and then you guys vote one way or the other and fix it the way you want to fix it, so.
Well, let's bring some iterations. When we bring it back, let's bring it back in such a way that we can get pieces of it, so it's not one, and I don't know, Carol, how you want to do that in the agenda, but we should be able to break it out and address chunks of it without just doing the whole thing, yay or nay.
Yes.
you.
Amendment process.
Thank you, ma'am.
Would you like to speak on this? Could you state your
Yes,
name?
my name is Diane Levesque. I live at 1324 West Oak, where there aren't any sidewalks. And I didn't sign up to speak to this, but I have spoken about this earlier. And that is, when you're looking at traffic of any sort, whether a person is on wheels or on foot, you're talking about the public going from point A to point B. Why one goes from point A to point B depends on whether or not it's commercial or residential or industrial. And I pointed out before that a one-size-fits-all will always give you variances. You need to be zone-specific. You have to recognize that you're talking about public traffic, whether it's on wheels or on foot. So you have to look at the situation where is public having access on private land, as in residential, in which case the property owner may have difficulty with liability accommodating the public on their private land. Or are you talking about private land that is open to the public for business, and then you're getting into a distinction between commercial and residential? I say before many times, and I will say again, one size fits all doesn't fit. And when you have a one size fits all ordinance, you are going to get variations depending on the situation.
Moving to item 6.2, conduct a public hearing regarding the submission of the Consolidated Annual Performance and Evaluation Report, CAPRA, for 2018 Community Block Grant CDBG Program year.
Yes, good evening, Mayor, Commissioners, City Manager. Yeah, this is the CAPER, the Consolidated Annual Performance Evaluation Report. It just highlights the successes of the CDBG projects. We allocate 100% of all of those fundings to low and moderate income projects. So that, again, was in that report. It has been available for 15 days to review. I will submit that on or before September 30th. The next meeting, I'll come back for approval, but at this time, we'll do comments, and then we'll leave it open until submission date.
Thank you, Stephanie.
Thank you.
Any,
Signed up to talk about it.
anyone here signed up to talk about that? Okay. Moving forward to item 7.1, community development, conducting a hearing for the rezoning of property described as a tract of the land lying in the southwest quarter, Southwest 4, Section 10, Township 22, 22 North, Range 6, 6 west of Indian Meridian, Garfield County, State of Oklahoma, located north of 3200 block of East Garriott Road, 3223 East Randolph Avenue, from R7 Residential Multifamily District to R1 Residential Estate District to a Agricultural District.
Thank you for not putting the entire legal description of this one in the agenda item. Really, really appreciate that.
This is the wrong one. No. No. Sorry for the confusion. We must have had that one there, please. Thank you, Mayor, Commissioner, City Management. This property is located on Randolph. We start off with our comprehensive plan. The area outlined in yellow is the request to have the property rezoned to agricultural. The comp plan identifies this as a university district. And our next slide gives you a little more detail, street names, O&K Garrett on the south, Randolph on the north. Currently, property is zoned R1 and R7. The applicant is seeking to zone all the area in yellow to agricultural. We have the infrastructure to support the zoning request, both road, sewer, and water. Planning Commission recommended to you 4-2 to approve. Are there any questions I can answer? Thank you.
I do, Chris.
Yes.
This was brought to us at MAPC prior
Yes.
to this time, right?
Yes.
What was it that we were told was going to go in there? Do you remember?
The applicant is here. On the application for rezoning, it simply stated a plant nursery, but the applicant is here this evening and can answer that question.
So it was a plant nursery, is what I put on there.
I'm sorry?
A plant nursery,
A plant nursery.
correct.
But you come to us one time, told us it was a nursery, right? And now you're going back agriculture, so it can be a grow house, right?
That's correct.
Yeah. Okay. I just want to make sure that that was clear, that that's what it's going to be. Okay.
Questions?
So does that mean you're going to have security around that?
Yes, we're gonna have 24-hour security. We'll also have 2 types of fencing. I'm currently putting shipping containers up to secure it.
I saw the shipping containers on site. So you're going to have, I want to hear a little bit more about the security around the grow facility, please.
Okay, so currently there is a barbed wire fence, a double barbed wire fence around the entire property. And per OMA's regulations, I'm required to put a 7-foot fence that encloses it from the public's view. So not only am I gonna put a 7-foot fence up, I'm also going to put barbed wire and have 24-hour surveillance. Well, 24-hour security on site.
So what is the composition of the 7-foot fence, please?
Sorry, what do you
The
mean?
composite, what is it gonna
What's
be
it made
made
of?
of? We're not supposed to be able to see through it. Is it gonna be wood or
Oh, it's gonna
concrete or-
it's gonna be a chain link fence with black, it's like this black tarp on it. But there's
Woven?
also, yeah, but there's also going to be shipping containers too. So there's gonna be 3 security measures on top of 24-hour surveillance. So we're trying to lock it down like Fort Knox.
Does everything get built in the hoop houses that are
Yeah,
out there?
Correct.
Shipping containers, you talking about like military shipping 20-foot containers? Or?
They're 20-foot containers, yes. I have 2 out there right now we're just using for storage, but that's our plan moving forward. But shipping containers are later on. I have to make sure that I don't have to get like permits to have them permanently there, but the fencing will be,
I'm thinking that you probably should do some check-in, and Ken Bradley can help you on whether or not that's allowed, what's allowed. I know this is just a hearing on rezoning that they're getting ready to vote on, but just thinking about future to help
Correct.
you with possible issues.
Because that's all building permit stuff, right?
Yes.
Yeah. But this is just the rezoning is,
So the fencing is so that people can't see in, is that what I heard you say?
the fencing is to make sure that the public's view is obscured and also for security. OMA requires me to have a certain amount of security. There are certain things that I have to comply with them.
I was just wondering, coming in on Owen Garrett right there, I mean, that's elevated. They will still be able to see over in that.
Well, they'd be able to see the tops, but because of how the greenhouses are, you cannot see inside of them at all. Like, you would probably barely even be able to see green in there to see even what it is.
they're like white hoop houses.
Yeah, well, I'm
Yeah.
not by there, I know.
Right, and then there's a tarp that gets put over them that makes them dark, so most of the time, you're not even gonna be able to see through them. It would just look like a regular plant nursery. I'm trying to conceal it as much as possible.
How far along are you in the OMA approval process?
Oh, I've already been approved for the license.
The license, but getting all the, I mean, they've got like 18 inspections or something, right? Through the,
They have inspections, yes, but currently our plants, like the hoop houses they're there, but I have the plants further up in a secure area.
gotcha.
So,
And I assume agricultural zoning is the appropriate zoning for grow houses.
and we've been using the property for agriculture for forever. And across the road is agriculture, catty corner is agriculture, so, I mean, I believe it's appropriate zoning.
But I mean, like Chris, under the comp plan, ag is I don't know that we have grow houses specifically outlined, but I can't imagine growing ag seems like the appropriate
Medical
zoning requirement.
marijuana regulations have not made it into our zoning for this time, so I'll defer the answer to their legal counsel.
Growing ag,
I think we're all learning together.
Yeah.
The only question I have is because that's, are you just going to build the fence? Because I go back to this, if it's, whatever color it is it just gonna be around those Quonset hut grow houses, or are you gonna put it around the entire property?
It's not gonna be around the entire property.
Okay.
Around the entire property is a fencing, and then it's gonna
Right.
be an inner fence, because we also use it for cattle, so the cattle are still gonna roam around the outskirts of it. So
I
it's
was
just that
trying to
secure
envision a
area.
Giant black 7-foot fence, you know, as you're coming into town.
Fencing in 20
We
acres.
have I think it's probably almost 5 foot up right now, black tarp around it, and if you drive past it, you can hardly even see it.
We
You
don't
even know
even,
it's there.
yes, because I go up and down that road like 6 times a week.
Yeah.
And I hadn't seen that part, but I've been watching the Quonset huts going up.
They look real hard.
Okay. All right, hearing, so.
Thank you.
Just, it's the first thing you're gonna see when you come to Enid.
Well, no, the first thing you see is the, I mean, before that,
Oh, I
you
know,
see,
Ben. I
you see our
know.
wind towers, you see
But
Advance.
at the end of the day, that's what we're gonna see. You know, we had a problem on the overpass with that company that was down there, and they were trying to put the fence up, and all the art people called because they could still see it from looking down, but apparently that's not an issue here.
Yeah.
if we look down at it.
Yeah,
So
David,
I think we kind of pick and choose which one of those projects that we wanna.
David, I mean, this has
Hold
been,
that.
this has been my neck of the woods my entire life. I've driven up down that highway more times than I can count. You know, coming in Enid, it's an industrial area, and it's farm ground, and there's all kinds of, I mean, it's, you know, seeing hoop houses is hardly gonna be objectionable.
And there's also a heavy tree line that's already there anyways.
Yeah.
There's the Enid sign, the heavy tree line, and then I don't know what, a billboard, and then like when you're driving.
You see the loading dock at Jump, I mean, you know, the loading
you would
dock
have
behind the
to
Jumbo's
look.
building, it's not.
All the way to the right to be able to see it. You wouldn't be paying attention to the road if you've seen
That's
it.
not difficult. I mean, I can turn.
Any more comments? Move the item. 7.2. Consider ordinance rezoning a property described as a tract of the land line in the southwest quarter, Southwest 4, Section 10, Township 22, 22 North, Range 6, 6 West of the Indian Meridian, Garfield County, State of Oklahoma, located north of 3200 block of East Garriott Road and 3223 East Randolph Avenue from R7 Residential Multifamily District and R1 Residential Estate District to a agricultural district.
Move to approve.
Second?
Please vote.
Does work?
Four to one. Item 3, conduct
You
a,
do that one? Do that?
because my father is the pastor of this church, I'm gonna, step out. And Ben, would you?
Sure. Item 7.3,
Thank you.
conduct a hearing for the rezoning of property by Westside Church of Christ described as lots 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, and 14, Block 6, Douglas Edition, and lots 1, 2, 19, and 20, Block 4, West Douglas Edition, located at 1910 West Chestnut Avenue from R4 Residential Duplex or Two-Family Dwelling District to R7 Residential Multifamily District. Chris?
Thank you, Mayor, Commissioners, City Manager. Here's our comp plan on this. The site is a blue box on this one, and it's detailed as a traditional neighborhood. It's appropriate what the rezoning request is for. On this slide, the area being rezoned is outlined in yellow. It's directly west of the church. Let me show you. It's kind of hard to see. This is the existing church and their existing parking lot. This is the area that they're seeking rezoning to R7. And I got a site plan in my presentation to help make sense of that. But before we do, we want to make sure we have access to the property, adequate roads, water, and sewer. In this case, we do have good road in Chestnut to support the rezoning. There is water in Chestnut. They are going to extend the sewer where you see right here. This will be extended to serve it. Their engineers looked at that, and that is possible. So we've passed all of the infrastructure requirements to support the rezoning. This now shows you a slide of what the project's going to look like. There are 1, 2, 3, 4 buildings. Each building has 2 apartments in it, so there'll be a total of 8. Over here is the church that I showed you on an earlier slide. They are extending the parking area to provide for the residents. Are there any questions?
Was
Thank
there, when it hit MAPC, were there any objections during that time?
Thank you for asking. Their recommendation to you is unanimous to approve. I missed that. Thank you.
Anybody else hearing? We're going to move on to item 7.4, consider an ordinance for zoning property described as lots 7 through 14 inclusive, Block 6, Douglas Edition, lots 1, 2, 19, and 20, Block 4, West Douglas Edition, located at 1910 West Chestnut Avenue, from R4 residential duplex or 2-family dwelling district to R7 residential multifamily district.
Move to approve.
Second.
Please cast your vote. Motion passes unanimously. We want to flag Derwin down?
Oh, there he is.
Pass 4-0, yeah.
Okay. Item 7.5, consider approval of the final plat of Cleveland Prairie being part of the Southeast 4 of Section 26, Township 23 North, Range 7 West of the Indian Meridian, City of Enid, Garfield County, Oklahoma.
Thank you, Mayor, Commissioners, City Managers. Here's a slide of the property. Purdue is on the south, Cleveland there. The property does not abut Purdue, but I'm orienting you. Here's Purdue and here's Cleveland. This is the property being considered. It has been rezoned to R2. We did that previously. My next slide shows you the overall preliminary plat, how the entire property will be developed at some point. But what we're here tonight is to look at the final plat, which is phase 1, and it's going to be in this area outlined in yellow, and here's what it looks like. There'll be 2 points of access off of Cleveland. Those of you who are familiar with Cleveland in this area, the pavement stops north of the Northmark Estates, which if I go back here in a few slides, this is Northmark Estates right here. There's a house here and a driveway. The pavement stops just north of this driveway. In this proposal, they are going to extend the pavement of Cleveland to the north boundary of their property. That's a part of their final plat. They have submitted the improvement plans of road, water, sewer, and stormwater, trash truck turnarounds. They have been reviewed by our engineering department. It's recommended for approval.
They have sidewalks, right?
And sidewalks, under your current ordinance.
These are single-family homes that are supposed to?
Yes, sir.
Has this been before MAPC?
Yes, their recommendation unanimously was to approve, sir.
Do we generally do like traffic studies in these areas to figure out what the impact is going to be? Because I know that's already a busy area. Did we look at that at all?
No, we did not. It did not rise in staff's opinion to that level. You're correct. As we're in more urban and we have major developments, we do routinely ask for traffic studies. This case, we didn't feel that was warranted.
Motion.
Then I move to approve.
Second.
Second.
Cast your votes. Votes 5-0. Item 8.1, consider a resolution amending the 2019-220 Water Capital Improvement Fund budget by appropriating additional funds in the amount of $12,975,000 to increase the 2019-2020 appropriated amounts for the Water Capital Improvement Department.
To approve?
Second.
Please cast your votes. Vote 5-0. Item point 8.2, approve amendment number 3 to the professional engineering services agreement with Garver LLC, Little Rock, Arkansas, for the alternate water supply from Call Lake, and the not to exceed amount of $12,975,000, and authorize the mayor to execute all contract documents.
Move to approve.
Second.
Please cast your votes. Votes 5-0.
Too late to fire you now.
Consent, item 9.1.
Move to approve consent agenda.
Second.
Please cast your votes. Votes 5-0. Did we just approve the whole,
Yeah.
all 9?
Vote
Okay,
item 10.
great.
Yeah.
Recess to convene as the Enid Municipal Authority. Item 11, trustees of the Enid Municipal Authority regular meeting. Item 12, Enid Municipal Authority regular meeting. Item 12.1, consider a resolution increasing the 2019-2020 physical financial plan for the Enid Municipal Authority in the amount of $12,975,000.
Motion to approve.
Second.
Please cast your votes. Votes 5-0. Item 2, award a contract with the Neopost USA Incorporated, Milford, Connecticut, for the purchase of the mailing and sorting software for the Utility Service Department in the amount of $69,721.
Move to approve.
Second. Oh,
Please cast your vote. Approved 5-0. Item 3, approval of claims in the amount of $301,312.55.
So moved.
Second.
Please cast your votes. 5-0. Item 13, adjourn to convene as the Enid Economic Development Authority. Item 14, trustees of the Enid Economic Development Authority in regular meeting. Item 15, Enid Economic Development Authority regular meeting. Item 1 of 15, approval of the claims in the amount of $4,500.
so moved.
Second.
Please cast your votes. Votes 5-0. Item 16, adjourn to convene as the Enid Public Transportation Authority. Item 17, trustees of the Enid Public Transportation Authority regular meeting. Item 18, Enid Public Transportation Authority regular meeting. Item 1 of 18, approval of the claims in the amount of $311.69.
So moved.
Second.
Please cast your vote. Approved 5-0. Item 19, adjourn to reconvene as the Enid City Commission. Item 20, public comments. We have 2 tonight signed up for public comments. First is Ms. Diane Levesque. Please state your name and address, please.
Diane Levesque, 1324 West Oak Avenue, where there are no sidewalks. I ran out of time last time before I made clear what Gerald Gilbert's request was when I raised Johnson Seed up for appraise. His request was a praise request. And in this particular instance, I already gave him advance notice of what I was going to comment on because it's more praise about something that is significantly Enid. And it also may address a problem with the dogs that the animal control is not addressing. And this is a matter I've already discussed with a member of the city code staffing, and that is sandbur. Now is the season where sandbur is popping up all over the place, and I know you guys keep your parks clear of that because all you need is a toddler to fall down on something full of sandbur seeds and you're drawing blood. Well, the same can be said if I strew sandbur seeds around the perimeter of the property. Any stray dog will have picked up sandbur seeds from somewhere and dragged them onto the property. So requiring me to control sandbur in a yard is unreasonable. And I did send Gerald a picture of city crews that looked to me like they were fixing to mow a ditch nearby. But they do mow ditches. They didn't mow the ditch at all. The picture is them two brooming off whatever it was, debris that they got from other ditches onto private property nearby a ditch that they didn't mow, so thereby spreading sandbur seeds. So I'm going to join with the city in the celebration of Enid's finest annoyance, sandbur. But there's one other thing that I do need that I didn't mention, and that is some recent events that I will need to speak to the police chief about, having to do with prowlers in the area. And I wish my commissioner was here, because I need to prevail upon him most urgently to take advantage of that OG&E program to light up the streets. Where I am is very dark. This is where the prowlers were, and they go by there frequently. This time around, I was able to drive around with my car and with my headlights and take a video of that and submit it to the police department anonymous tip line. We have a problem. We have an ongoing problem. We still don't have lighting. Please fix that yesterday. Thank you.
Next for public comments, Ray Graves.
Good evening. My name is Ray Graves. I live at 616 East York, and I have called, I've talked to Brian about the streets over there. Each time, and I do mean each time it rains, you talk about ditches, no sidewalks? There's none, but there are ditches because of that rain. When I call, it might take a month or two to get it fixed, and when they fix it, this continuously happens. What is fixed on that street is dirt and a little bit of gravel. Now, I do mean dirt and a little bit of gravel. And so when it rains, all that ditch, and my mailman cannot get to my box. He has to park out here, walk to my mailbox right here by the street, by my yard, in order to put my mailbox in. Otherwise, his vehicle is going in that ditch. It's not a small ditch, it is a ditch. And also by Johnny Ray's, that same street, by where Johnny Ray's business, where he cuts hair, that same street, it's the same way. When I did volunteer work at Carver pre-K school, they would take the children on walking. They would walk that way to go to, across that underpass to go to Government Springs when they have a event over that way. Now, if any of those kids step into that ditch, you as the city have a problem. And I do mean you have a serious problem. Now, also during the track season, you're talking about a sidewalk or some way where that street is safe. The track, the individual who runs track in the high school, they run down that way all the way over to that side. That's how they get back and forth, because that's how they condition before they start track practice. So that road is dangerous for them also, because that is a dangerous road. Even if it's just a few of us, 3 households on that street, you have a dangerous road. You have that park right next to there where you have the JRTC, the football, Little League football. You have people who will park their cars and walk across that bridge. Or you have neighbors, like he said, we want to walk across that bridge safely down that street. I have neighbors up the street there who the children on their bicycles, little kids, and they have fallen on their bicycles. Some of them have fallen, if they're going that hill so fast, they fall into that creek because they cannot control their bicycles. The road is dangerous. I'm tired, and so is my mailman. I'm very tired of asking for that road to be fixed. I grew up in Enid. I'm a military brat, but that road was dirt. It's safer then than what it is now. The road is very dangerous. My car's tearing up. It's not a good car. I'm thankful for my car. It was a blessing, but I would like to keep my car for a few more years. But it's messing up. So I'm complaining about that. And then that street, Leona Mitchell, when is that going to be fixed? Towards Southgate?
2 months.
With the bridge, yes, a couple of months.
It's been out for a while. It's been out for a while.
We
Seems
were
like
just updated on that tonight, and it's just weeks away, literally. We asked about that, they showed us pictures of it, and it's gonna be fixed straight away.
I have one more, thank you, I appreciate that. I have one more complaint. The water on the end. 616 East York, that water, since it's at the end of the road, the water comes through my sink, the water comes through my tub, to the toilet. I could have to put bleach in there to keep that ring from coming around there. The water is bad down there. And I know that they tried working on it in the field, in my land, at the very end of the field there, but there's no pipes. So the water pipe is in my road because it busted about 10 or 12 years ago when the ice, that road busted, the pipe in the middle of the road. So at that time, I guess they didn't know that pipe was there. So when they tried to find out where the water pipe is in my yard down there, it's not there. My water is bad. It smells bad sometimes when I'm taking a shower. I'm just.
Okay, I was gonna ask Everett, would you get with her on the streets and see what can be done? And then, yeah, if you'll, yeah, okay, thanks.
I appreciate it very, very much because it's driving me insane. I drink bottled water all the time. And that's, my one. Thank you so much. I appreciate y'all listening. Thank you.
This meeting's adjourned.
Thank you for watching the Enid Television Network broadcast of the Enid City Council meeting. Replays of the meeting will air on Channel 12 and 112, including a live stream of the meeting at enidtv.org.